I want to start with a question for you, our listener, and it's a simple one, but I think it's surprisingly hard to answer. If you
Mhm.
actually added it all up, every coffee, every Uber Eats order, the impulsive snacks, the big grocery bills, do you really know what you spend on food every month?
Almost no one does. People, they tend to focus on that one big number, the weekly grocery shop, and they totally miss what you could almost call the friction costs of appetite.
Friction costs, I like
Yeah,
the.
those little daily purchases. They add up so quietly. And before you know it, they're one of the single biggest hidden expenses in your budget.
That daily friction is everything. And it's exactly why we're doing this deep dive today, because we're looking at this fascinating intersection of modern health and, believe it or not, personal finance.
Hmm.
We're going to get into the real economic savings people are seeing with GLP-1 medications right now, and then look ahead to the radical future promised by the next wave of peptide science. Things like retatrutide.
Right. So our mission today is really two-pronged. First, we want to look at how the source material reframes these therapies. They're not just a health investment, which they obviously are, but they can be a financial offset to these huge lifestyle costs we just talked about.
Okay. And the second part.
Second, we'll explore the science itself, specifically this exponential leap to a triple agonist approach and how it's basically poised to redefine what we even think is possible for metabolic health.
All right, let's set the stage. The word peptide. It used to sound like something out of a research lab, super esoteric. Now it's at the absolute core of pharma innovation.
Well, and what's so wild is that peptides are, they're simply the body's own language. They're these powerful biological messengers, just little chains of amino acids that your body already makes and completely understands.
You're not introducing a foreign substance, really.
In a way, no. And this field is moving so fast that the precision we now have to manage things like metabolism and appetite, it's just fundamentally shifting the entire landscape of wellness.
Let's start with the money side, the economics, because this is where the sources gave us some genuinely eye-opening numbers. We talk a lot about the cost of healthcare, but maybe not enough about the high cost of just being hungry.
That's a perfect way to put it. When we dug into the consumer spending data, the amount of money people dedicate to food is just, it's staggering.
Okay, so what are we talking about?
For an average adult, your total food spending, that's groceries, takeout, everything, it can easily hit $700, maybe $1,000 a month, or even more, especially if eating out is a regular part of your life.
And what about for professionals? The people grabbing a quick lunch, coffee every day.
That's where it really balloons. The sources show many of them spend between $500 and $700 a month just on restaurants and cafes. It is, like you said, death by 1,000 small charges.
Let's just, break that down. A $16 lunch 3 times a week, plus maybe a $10 coffee and a pastry 5 times a week.
You're already over $500 right there. And that's before you've bought a single thing for your fridge at home. The cost just spirals because our appetite, our cravings, they drive us toward convenience, and convenience always has a premium price tag.
And then there's the waste, right? You buy all this healthy stuff for your fridge with great intentions, but then a craving for takeout hits and...
And those good intentions just wilt in the crisper drawer.
Exactly.
The whole system becomes inefficient. And this brings us right to the key insight from the sources, the GLP-1 financial shift.
Okay.
When people start these medications, like a semaglutide or tirzepatide, they report this dramatic change in their financial behavior.
That's like it rewires the impulse to spend.
It does. The mechanism is pretty straightforward. These drugs improve your satiety signals, so they quiet down that mental noise of cravings and impulse
You're
eating.
just not thinking about food all the time.
Right. Users say they have less interest in big restaurant meals. They're not buying as many snacks. And crucially, they're actually eating the groceries they buy. The data showed savings of $75 to $150 a month just from less food waste and fewer impulse buys at the store.
So let's go back to that professional who's spending, say, $900 a month on food. If you cut way back on the convenience buys and the snacking the sources suggest, you could realistically drop that down to $500 or $600.
Easily. So that's a saving of $300 to $400 a month right there,
Right.
just from changing your purchasing habits.
Wow.
And that's probably a conservative number because we haven't even touched on alcohol. Many users report drinking a lot less just because that whole system of cravings has calmed down. Alcohol is a massive expense for a lot of households.
So when you add it all up, food, takeout, alcohol, the total lifestyle savings.
Could easily be in the range of $350 to maybe $650 a month.
Mm.
Significant.
And this is where we really need to pause and connect the dots for the listener. Because when you think about the out-of-pocket cost of the medication itself, which can be several $100s,
Yeah.
these savings become a huge part of the story.
It stops being just a medical expense. It starts to function more like a financial reallocation.
Mm.
If you can use that, say, $400 a month you're saving to cover a big chunk of the medication cost.
Then you're getting better health, more energy, less stress around food, potentially for a net neutral cost compared to what you were spending before.
Exactly. It completely reframes the financial calculation of managing your health.
Okay, so we've seen the economic shift, but to really get why this is all moving so fast, we need to go from the dollars to the biological dynamics. What is this molecule actually doing? Let's do a quick peptides 101.
Yeah, let's do it. So think of peptides as the body's instruction manual, but it's written in these really short, very clear sentences. They're just short chains of amino acids, and their whole job is communication. These specific little sequences are recognized by receptors on your cells, and they tell that cell exactly what to do.
So they're not huge, complex proteins, and they're definitely not like a traditional drug that just floods your system. They're more like precision tools.
That is the perfect distinction. A lot of traditional medications are designed to, block a process
Mm.
or override it. They work, but they can be a bit of a blunt instrument, which can lead to more side effects.
Right.
Peptides, on the other hand, are designed to support or enhance a natural signal the body is already using. It's like having the exact right key for very specific lock.
And GLP-1 is the key in this case.
Correct. Glucagon like peptide 1. It's just a hormone your gut naturally releases when you eat. Its job is to tell your brain, hey, food's on board, which helps control blood sugar and gives you that feeling of being full.
So the current therapies are just amplifying that signal.
Exactly. There are synthetic versions that mimic that natural I'm full signal, but they're designed to stick around for a lot longer than your body's own GLP-1, which is very short-lived.
That ability to turn up the volume on a natural body signal, that brings us to the real cutting edge, the next generation molecule that's getting these just unprecedented results, retatrutide.
Mm.
If the current drugs were a big leap forward, this seems like a total metabolic reset button.
It really is the next logical and, frankly, exponential step.
Mm-hmm.
Retatrutide is still investigational. It's from Eli Lilly, but what makes it different is that it's a triple agonist.
Okay, triple agonist. So it's hitting 3 different pathways at the same time.
Exactly. It's creating a much more comprehensive metabolic effect than anything that's come before it.
So let's break that comparison down because it really shows how fast this is all moving.
Okay, so we can think of it as levels of communication. Semaglutide, like in Wegovy, is a GLP-1 agonist. That's one pathway.
All
It's
right.
like sending a strong text message to your body. Then you have tirzepatide in Zepbound. That's a GLP-1 plus a GIP agonist. 2 pathways. So now you're sending a text and a follow-up email.
Right, more comprehensive.
And then retatrutide adds the third layer. It's GLP-1 plus GIP plus glucagon. This is like calling a full-on staff meeting. It's a much more complex, coordinated set of instructions.
Glucagon, that's the new piece. Now, we've kind of been taught to think of glucagon as the thing that raises blood sugar, sort of the opposite of insulin. So what does activating that receptor add here?
That is a really, really smart question because glucagon's role is definitely complex. But in this context, stimulating its receptor seems to fundamentally increase energy expenditure.
So it's telling the body to just rev up its engine.
That's a great way to put it. So you're not just reducing intake by suppressing appetite, you're actively increasing the body's energy output.
And it does that how?
It promotes fat oxidation, which is just a scientific term for burning stored fat for fuel. So it creates a much more dynamic shift, and this is where it might solve one of the biggest concerns with really rapid weight loss.
Which is losing lean muscle mass along with the fat.
Exactly. While some of the earlier drugs can lead to muscle loss, the early data on retatrutide strongly suggests that adding that glucagon pathway helps preserve lean mass. And that is so important for keeping your metabolism healthy long-term and preventing weight regain.
The sources back this up with some truly record-breaking numbers. Just how significant was the weight loss in the trials?
I mean, it's phenomenal. Participants lost more than 24% of their total body weight at the 48-week mark. And in some of the extended studies, that number got closer to 29%.
29%. Let's put that in context. For someone who weighs 200 pounds, that's, what, nearly 60 pounds?
58 pounds, yeah. Those are results that start to look a lot like what you see from bariatric surgery. But it's achieved with a weekly medication.
And it seems to be especially good at targeting that dangerous internal fat.
That's right. The trial showed a deeper and faster loss of visceral fat. That's the fat that's packed around your organs, your liver, your pancreas. And it's the stuff that's so strongly linked to heart disease, fatty liver disease, all of it. Getting rid of that is a huge step toward real long-term metabolic repair.
But the benefits went way beyond just the number on the scale. The sources mentioned things like severe joint pain.
Yeah, look at the Triumph H4 study data. They looked at patients with obesity and knee osteoarthritis, which can be an absolutely crippling condition. They saw these huge improvements in pain, stiffness, physical function. Some of them became almost pain-free.
And that's from a combination of things. Less weight on the joints.
Less weight for sure, but
Right.
also potentially reduction in the body's systemic inflammation, which we know these drugs can help with.
So it's a full spectrum repair job, really.
The clinical signals point that way. We're seeing reported improvements in blood pressure, cholesterol, triglycerides, a big reduction in liver fat. And there's also some really encouraging early data for peri and postmenopausal women who often struggle with insulin resistance. It seems to solve several interconnected problems all at once.
The results are amazing, but what are the trade-offs? With a third mechanism, are the side effects worse?
That's always the question. The data suggests retatrutide has pretty much the same safety profile as the other GLP-1s. So the side effects are typically gastrointestinal nausea, that kind of thing. But what's interesting is that the clinical improvements seem to happen faster, so it suggests you're getting more power without a proportional increase in the negative side effects.
So if everything stays on track, when could people actually get access to this?
We're still a couple years out. It's in its final phase 3 trials now. The expectation is that Eli Lilly will seek FDA submission sometime in late 2025, maybe early 2026.
Which means it could be available in clinics 2026, 2027.
That's the timeline we're looking at, yes.
Yeah.
It represents a very clear and, for a lot of people, a very highly anticipated future.
Now, while the mainstream is so focused on metabolic health, it's worth taking a step back. Because peptides have been used for a lot more than just weight loss for a while now. We saw in the sources what you might call the early adopter advantage.
Right. This is the sort of quiet secret that's been happening in concierge medicine and high-performance circles for years. Celebrities, elite athletes, the longevity crowd, they were using peptides to boost performance and recovery long before GLP-1 was a household name.
And it wasn't just about looking good, right? What were they actually using them for?
Mostly as these precision tools for recovery and functional aging. So in athletics, you'd see peptides that help promote tissue repair, things that could maybe accelerate muscle or tendon healing and cut down on downtime.
And the aesthetic side. Because we hear about peptides in skincare all the time.
Absolutely. Actors have used skin-enhancing peptides for a long time, things that support collagen production. There are even peptides that can stimulate your body's own tanning process.
And then there's a whole wellness side that's actually becoming much more mainstream now.
Correct. We're now seeing FDA-approved peptides used for things like sexual wellness for both men and women to improve blood flow and intimacy. For the ultra-wealthy, maintaining peak performance in every aspect of life is the goal, and peptides offer these very specific solutions.
So the real takeaway here isn't just that the wealthy had early access, it's that the underlying science, the ability to use these targeted biological messengers, is finally moving out of those exclusive clinics and into mainstream medicine.
That's the heart of it. While some of those performance peptides are still in those high-end networks, the fundamental science is now fueling therapies that are accessible to everyday people. It's an amazing shift toward care that supports the body's natural systems instead of just trying to override them.
That's a fantastic way to pull it all together. Okay, so let's quickly recap the biggest takeaways for you, the listener.
We started with the surprising financial cost of food, which is often way higher than we think. Then we showed how these current GLP-1 therapies can provide real, tangible savings that can actually help offset the cost of the medication itself.
Right, by quieting the biological noise of cravings. Then we define peptides as these precision messengers that use the body's own language. And finally, we looked ahead to the future, to the triple agonist retatrutide.
Which promises these just unprecedented results. Up to 29% weight loss, huge benefits for things like joint pain and fatty liver disease, all through that precise three-pathway approach.
This whole deep dive really connects the dots from your personal bank account all the way to the sophisticated biology of these molecules.
And that leaves me with one final thought. If a medication can fundamentally rewire your body's signals to the point where it saves you hundreds of dollars a month on impulsive spending, And at the same time, it addresses these huge chronic diseases, fatty liver, heart risk, joint pain. Does that change the way we calculate the true cost of health?
A profound question to think about. Until our next deep dive, keep digging and keep learning.